Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this session on the group coaching call. I'm happy that so many of you all are there on this Sunday morning for this particular session. Last evening, for those of you all that were there, we had an amazing session by Gautam Gupta on planning. It was such an insightful session. I hope a lot of you all attended that particular session. It got amazing feedback from all our participants. And today's day is focused on the group coaching call, right? Now, the idea here of doing this group coaching call is very often a lot of us have questions connected to the workplace, questions that we don't find reliable sources to answer, right? That doesn't happen. And when we would do training programs like physical classroom programs, people would always be waiting back to ask questions and we could never get everybody's questions answered. So we thought once every month we should have this particular group coaching calls where people can actually come up and very freely ask the questions that they have, and get reasonably good answers for those particular questions, right? So that's the entire motive here. We're going to spend the next 1.5 hours doing that, and hopefully all of us should take back some very good ideas from the session that we're doing. Okay, so what do we need to do? Very simple, right? So please go to the chat box. Actually, sorry, please go to the Q&A box, which is there, and you all can pose whatever questions you all have with regards to anything connected to the workplace, right? That you'll have questions, and we will take the time to answer each one of those questions. There is no other agenda of this particular session but to answer the questions that you all pose, right? So I am leaving the forum open to each one of you all to ask whatever questions you are. I will try to take those questions one by one. Yeah, and please put your questions in the Q&A box and not the chat box. Okay, we have 2 questions already. I'm waiting for more questions. I'll wait for 5 questions and then I will start answering the questions. Okay, good. So we have a couple of questions. Let's get started with the questions that have come up, right? So I would like Nandini Basi has a question, and maybe you can send a follow-up question to this, Nandini. Are you talking about what is the job scope as a trainer, or just what is the job scope in terms of just being good at your communication skills, Nandini? What exactly are you talking about? Yeah, as a trainer. Okay, good. Nandini, I think that's a good question. So let me just go back and try to answer that particular question. So communication skills, in my opinion, and not just in my opinion, if you look at any research connected to the subject of the important work skills that are required, communication skills will be right at the top of that particular chain, right? And the reason why communication skills will be right on top of that particular chain is because all our work, irrespective of what we do for the rest of our career, will happen through communication. It doesn't matter what job you're doing, it doesn't matter what level you're doing it at. All our work for the rest of our life will happen through communication, right? It could be written communication, it could be verbal communication, it could be presenting to people, but it's the entire way work happens. As a matter of fact, communication skills are so important because we live our entire personal lives through communication. That's exactly how we live our lives, right? So in my opinion, if somebody is not good at communication skills, they're very, very unlikely to succeed professionally, and they're very unlikely to have a smooth, peaceful personal life as well. Right. So that's the reason why I put communication skills at the very, very top of the chain. And if you have typically kind of observed people that get to levels of senior managers, or really end up succeeding in their career, 8 out of 10 times, right? You will never find anything which has 100% kind of success rate, but 8 out of 10 times you will see that anybody that gets to the highest levels of management or does extremely well in their career has really, really good communication skills, right? So that's something that you're going to see. And therefore, in my opinion, it is the number one skill for any person to develop, right? Now, given that it is such an important skill, I think it's very important to have good teachers to teach that particular skill to people. And in our experience at Work Better, there are hardly any kind of trainers that can teach that subject very well, because most of them itself don't have a very deep understanding of this particular subject, right? So yes, communication skills is important for each and every person that is working. It's important in your personal life, and because it's so important, we need very good teachers. And because we need very, very good teachers, and there aren't enough good teachers, I think that is a very good area that any soft skills trainer can specialize in, right? And I would recommend that you do the same. My only request to you is, please think of the subject deeply, because in our experience, most people don't understand this subject well enough. And they just read a few things from here and there, and try to talk about that. But you need to have a very deep understanding of what the subject is about. So that is what I would recommend. So yes, Nandini, I hope I answered your question, and I hope that threw light to a few other people on the importance of that particular skill. Okay. Now Mohit Kumar has a question. Again, I want some clarity on it. How to judge what if I'm sitting comfortably? Mohit, you'll have to give me some clarity on what you're trying to say. I'm not entirely sure what the question is. So if you can just give me some clarity by asking a follow-up question, that would be great. Okay, Mahesh Iyer has a question. How do we know that the other person is understanding what we are saying? Mahesh, very good question. This is a very important part of being a good communicator, right? So one of the things that we say in all our communication classes is, if you are a good communicator, you need to take 100% responsibility of your communication, which means that if you are speaking or writing to another person, you must take responsibility that that other person has understood your message specifically, clearly, and without any doubt, right? These are the three very important words in communication. I'll repeat this. When you are writing or when you are speaking to somebody else, you must take 100% responsibility that the other person is understood your message specifically, clearly, and without any doubt. Which means that if the other person has not understood your message properly, correctly, do not blame him for that particular thing. You need to take the responsibility, saying you possibly didn't explain that thing well enough or good enough. Now, if you keep this particular background in mind, it becomes very important for you to periodically check with that other person whether that other person has understood the message or not, right? It's that simple. Therefore, what do you need to do? Now, number one way in which you can know whether the other person has understood the message or not is just his body language, right? If you're doing a video call with that particular person, or if you're just sitting in front of that person, I think each one of us are very adept at really knowing whether the other person has understood the message or not just by his body language, right? So therefore, you must try to be as observant of the body language as possible when you're communicating to another person. And that's why they say you need to speak and listen not just through your ears or your mouth, but also through your eyes, right? And body language plays a very important part there. Number two, if you're on a phone call with another person, if you've seen in the past when you're communicating something and the other person doesn't understand it, he typically has blanks in the way he talks. Those blanks are a little more than usual. So if you're paying attention, you will know that, okay, you know what, he didn't respond quite well to this particular part that I spoke. There was a long pause or a long break that was there in his responses to that. So that is often a good cue for you to know whether the other person is understood what you're trying to say. And the third tip that I would share there is, it's a very simple tip. ask the other person directly, have you understood very clearly, and make the person comfortable. Just say, I've explained this thing, have you understood what I'm trying to say, or do you have any questions, right? So again, periodically keep asking the person whether you have made yourself crystal clear, and encourage him to ask questions, encourage him to clarify his doubts that are there. The more you encourage him to do that, the more he will do that, and then you will be on the same page as far as your communication is concerned. We have seen in the past that a lot of people may ask this thing, but they don't encourage people from the other side enough to ask questions. And this especially happens if you have a team reporting into you. If you have some of your team members that are there, and they a lot of times feel extremely shy to ask questions, sometimes they're scared to ask questions, sometimes they feel that they will look stupid if they ask those particular questions, and that's not the way you deal with the situation, right? You explain something to your subordinates or your colleagues, and then you encourage them to ask questions. And every time if they ask a good question, you could probably start off by encouraging them, right? You could just say, great, that's a good question to ask. So it sets a kind of culture in your team where questions are appreciated, where seeking clarity is encouraged, right? And that's exactly what we want to do. So I hope I've answered your question, and I'd like to end with this one last point. Um, Poor communication is one of the biggest time wasters in the corporate world. So if each one of us improved our communication, we will end up saving a lot of time, right? Because if you explain something to your subordinates, colleagues, and they understand you incorrectly, they will go end up doing work that they don't really need to do, and spend a lot of time doing that particular work where they could have put their energies to doing it in the right way. So bad communication has got, and poor communication, gaps of communication have got lots of negative consequences. And therefore, seeking clarity, ensuring that the other person is understood the message, becomes of prime importance. So I absolutely, Mahesh Iyer, love your question. Number one, look for the body language cues, okay, the facial expression cues. Number two, in the way, if you're on the phone, in the way the person is responding, are there long pauses? Is he responding in a slightly shaky way? And number three, most importantly, what you need to do, if you ask me, is ensure that you ask him whether they have any doubts, whether they have any questions. Encourage them every time they ask a question, so that it sets the right culture in your particular team. Okay, Mahesh, thank you very much for the great question. I hope I've answered your question well. Okay, yes. Okay, let me go to my favorite, Akib Mohammed. You always ask some very good questions. Okay, actually, we are having some technical consultancy tie-up with our company, and they contact us normally to have continuous connection. When we ask them any questions, to respond to them when they are related to our work, our superiors don't like it. Akib, I am not again clear on what your question is, so I wouldn't like to answer it unless I'm crystal clear on what you're asking. So if you could ask your question, I would take it up after that. Okay. Just let's go to the next one. Yes, Bharat Patel, very good question. Okay, many of the times making harmony with all our colleagues becomes difficult. How to make impact while discussing in a group? Okay, I think this is a very good question. Now we could go on with the answer to this, but I'm going to give you 2 or 3 pointed things that you can start doing, okay, from right now. The first thing that you need to start doing if you want to have good communication in groups with your colleagues, the number one thing to do is be a good listener. Okay, in that particular group discussion, because what we've seen in the past is a lot of people spend a whole lot of time trying to talk, trying to impress, and very little time trying to actually listen, digest, and understand what other people are saying. And this we've seen across many years, right? So what would I recommend to you? Start by being a good listener. Now, what do you mean? What do I mean by being a good listener? Okay, so number one point in being a good listener. There's a very nice quote that says by Stephen Covey. So he has a quote where he says, the problem with communication is that we listen to reply, not to understand. Okay, I'll repeat it. He says the problem with communication is that we listen to reply, not to understand. And the whole point of listening is first to understand what the other people are trying to say, right? And then replying to it. But that's not something that we do more often than not, right? So from today onwards, actually, if you're on the table, try to listen and try to understand what they're trying to say, and understand your colleagues not just from what are the facts that they're bringing, but what are the emotions also behind what they're saying in that particular group discussion. So try to understand both the facts of the matter and also try to understand what is the emotional side of what they're bringing to the table, and actually listen to that as well. Okay, so that's point number one: listen to understand, not to reply. Okay, now the number 2 point connected to this is, when you're listening to the other person, try to pick from that particular discussion. When you're listening to them, try to pick and understand, okay, what is the good or what is the positive that I can take out of what this other person is saying, right? Because sometimes when a person is saying something, you may not agree with the entire point that he's making, but there could be one little bit from that particular thing that he's saying that you can actually pick and build upon, right, as an idea. But more often than not, most of us think in black and white. We're either picking the entire idea or we're not picking the entire idea. I don't want you thinking like this from now on, right? When you're listening to your colleague, actually listen to him and say, what exactly can I pick from this particular thing that he's saying? And you may not agree with the entire idea, but you pick something from there and try to build on that particular thing further, right? So this is called trying to create agreement frames. That is the term for this particular thing, right? You're trying to create agreement frames between the two of y'all. And the most creative people, think like this, right? It's not that they are born creative, but they're always trying to listen to the other person and thinking, how can I build upon what this person is saying, instead of negating the entire idea in itself, right? And that requires, again, a lot of good listening. That requires a lot of patience while you actually listen, to take that and build upon it further, right? So that's my kind of second point with you. And the third point, of course, if you're in a situation in a group where people are cutting you short all the time, if people are kind of speaking over you all the time, now of course it depends on whether you have, say, a super boss speaking to you like that. So at those times you often just have to keep quiet, right? There's not much that you can do. But if you're in a discussion with colleagues, I think it's very, very important for you to be assertive. And what assertive means is, very often when people are cutting you off, very often when people are not letting you speak, it's not that they're doing it on purpose. Very often they just don't realize that they're doing something like that, right? So my whole point to you is, be assertive and just let them know. They say, I'm sorry, gentlemen, let me just finish what I have to say, and then you can get in on that particular conversation. But we are so scared to actually be assertive or put our point across or communicate our view that way, right? So we keep being on the receiving end of this particular thing, without assertively actually putting our point across and saying that, hey, you know what, you are not letting me finish what I'm trying to say. Let me just finish what I'm trying to say, and then you can lay your points out that you want to lay. So ensure that you're being assertive and letting people know about this particular thing. Again, important to understand what assertive means, right? Because our bosses keep telling us, or a lot of people have told us in the past, that you need to be assertive, without really explaining what it means. And being assertive basically is a combination of two words. Being assertive means speaking in a confident tone of voice and mixed with a polite tone of voice, right? So when you mix the two, being confident yet polite, that is assertive, right? And what people often tend to do is, we often tend to go on either sides of the spectrum. And what I mean by either side of the spectrum is, sometimes we, on the confidence side, we speak a little too confidently, and that goes into being rude. And what you want is, you want to be confident, firm, and polite on the other side. Or the extreme of polite is where we sound totally meek, or we sound totally weak. Polite, and you need to mix being firm, confident with being polite when you're putting your point across to the other person, and especially if they're cutting you off non-stop when you're trying to put a point together, right? And then all of a sudden, when you're assertive, the rest of the people in the group will take a back seat and actually listen to what you have to say, because nobody's actually come ahead and put this point across in that particular way. So those would be my 3 points to you. Number one, stop talking too much, listen to understand, not to reply. Number two, when you're listening to somebody, try to find agreement frames, which is Try to see what from their point can you pick up and build on that particular thing. Number three, if people are cutting you off in group discussions nonstop, assertively put your particular point forward and tell them that you're being cut off and you can't make the point. You will find that in most cases, people will end up taking a backseat to it. Okay. So great question, Bharat Patel. I hope I've added, even if it's not the perfect answer, I hope that you can pick a few tips from what we've discussed here and use it at the workplace. That could be very effective for you. Okay. Debraj, I hope my voice is not breaking anymore. Okay. Madhusudan Sharma, me interested in just discussing on ego problems of the seniors who always keep his idea or knowledge on top, how to handle such a situation. Madhusudan, I don't often, you are not audible. Am I, guys, am I audible? Yes. Okay. I think most people are saying that I'm audible. Yes. Okay, so Madhusudan, I often am not interested in uh, discussing what other people need to do, right? Because it's very, very difficult to change other people. यहाँ पे खुद बदलने में फटती है यार, लोग क्या बदलेंगे हम लोग? So I'm interested in what ego is and what you can do about that particular thing, right? Or how you can change this particular thing. So first of all, try to understand what ego is and how somebody can become, for a want of a better word, ego less in your personal and professional lives, right? So very simply, not having an ego in a way means your ability to say, I was wrong and you were right, right? That's basically what not having any ego means. Your ability to say, I was wrong, you were right. Okay, your ability to say your idea was better than mine, right? That's what, in the sense, not having an ego means. And we actually struggle to do this particular thing in our personal lives and even in our professional lives, right? In both sides of our lives, we really struggle to do this thing where we say, oh, you know what, your idea was better than mine. Oh, you know, I was wrong, you were right. And demonstrating ego less behavior takes a lot of practice. You know, it takes you actually practicing this on a day-to-day basis, that every time that you're wrong, admit it publicly, admit it to people, right? And the more you go about doing that particular admission, the more at ease you become of accepting your particular mistakes, and people tend to appreciate that a lot more. Okay, now you would have seen this particular thing. All the people who have come on this Sunday morning would have seen this particular behavior, right? Sometimes you have leaders, okay, and they could have been you as well, that do something wrong or make a mistake while doing something. Now everybody in the team knows that they've made a mistake around a certain thing, but they don't accept the mistake because for some reason they think that they will look smaller by admitting to the mistake that they have made, right? They think that they're going to look smaller. And as a matter of fact, if they admitted their mistake, okay, and in a way apologized or at least admitted their mistake in front of their team, they wouldn't look smaller, but as a matter of fact, their team or the people would respect them more. If you all agree with what I'm trying to say, put a big yes in the chat box if you agree with this particular point, right, that I've just explained. Yeah. So this happens with all leaders, that they think that they will look smaller. Thank you. I'm getting a lot of yeses because I'm sure most of you all agree with it, right? So they think they will look smaller, but just the opposite thing happens, right? Where they gain the respect of their people a lot more. Okay, so that's actually what ego less behavior actually means. And I think each one of us needs to practice it in some way or the other. Okay, now, a lot of y'all who are parents demonstrate ego less behavior even in front of your children. You know, if you have a significant other, if you have a partner, spouse, demonstrate ego less behavior even there, where you admit that you're wrong. With your family members, right? Whether it's your siblings, cousins, friends, demonstrate ego less behavior even there, where you admit to your mistakes, and you will gain more respect from all these people than you will lose it, right? That's what you're supposed to do. Now, Madhusudan, if I have to give you one tip in terms of what you need to do when you're discussing, say, problems with your senior, you need to have a lesser ego. And when you're explaining something to them, make it seem to them like it is their idea, right. So you can say, sir, remember you had spoken about something like this that had to be done, and based on what you shared with me, I made this little project, but it's based on an idea that you gave me initially, that I have done this particular thing, okay, which I'm now presenting to you. So the more to seniors like this you make it seem like, sir, मैं आपकी idea लेके आपको present कर रहा हूँ, थोड़ा बहुत मैंने भी इस पे काम किया है. The more you make it seem to them like that, the more they will be willing to accept those particular ideas, because they will think that those ideas have come from them. But to do that particular thing, you need to have a lesser ego, right? Because if you go into the scene saying, nahi yaar, meri idea hai, why the hell should I say that, sir, मैंने आपकी idea लेके कुछ किया है, right? मुझे ये नहीं करना, मेरी idea है, मैं क्यों बोलूं ऐसे, right? So the more you think like that, the more you have an ego there, the more you won't be able to get your work done. Okay, and I'll just share one particular thing. People that do well in their careers focus on the end result that they need to get, right? They are not that caught up in terms of ye meri idea hai ya teri idea. They don't get caught up in all those things. They look at, how do I get a result, how do I get a result consistently, and for that, if they have to be a little more what do you call it, I'm not getting the right word, a little more what do you call it, smart about getting your work done, little more tactful about getting your work done, please use all that tact for that final result to come in, right? So also, while dealing with your boss, ensure that you lower your guards, ensure that you lower your ego, and that is something that will help in terms of you getting those ideas through. Okay, and the last point that I have there, always remember that when you share your ideas, it doesn't mean that your ideas are right. Okay, but because you have shared those ideas, you think they're good. That's a very natural human tendency. There's also a word to it. When you share your ideas, you always think they're good, you always think they're the right way, but maybe from a company point of view, they're not right. Maybe you are not looking at the larger picture while sharing those ideas, right? So share your ideas, but also be open and try to understand why those ideas are not good enough. And if you're kind of if your seniors say that, oh, this is not going to work, always politely try to understand from them why that thing is not going to work, right? So that gives you some good insight, that gives you some good learning that you can incorporate in your ideas, projects, the next time when you're going forward to them, right? So this would be my answer to it. Madhusudan, it's a very, very good question. It's a very nice question. I'm very happy that you asked it, because I'm sure a lot of people would benefit from the answer that we just gave, right? Um, Jaya Chandran, please help me control my temper for nonsense queries when we discuss serious subjects. Okay. So first of all, again, this is a very interesting question, right? Losing my temper easily. Okay. Anybody that loses their cool easily, the problem is not other people, the problem is you. Okay. And until you come to accept that particular reality, that when you lose your temper, the problem is not other people, the problem is you, right? You are never going to stop losing your temper, because I think most people here would agree that whether it's your personal life, whether it's your professional life, losing your temper, and especially losing your temper where you feel you're not in control of it, is detrimental to both professional and personal settings, right? Because when you're in that kind of a state of mind, we tend to do and say things that we often regret later, right? If we keep losing our temper, we tend to say and do things that we regret later. So it's never a good thing to lose your temper in any way, right? Now, you may have to show your temper very often. There's a difference. You may have to show your temper, but not necessarily lose your temper. You may have to show your temper. If you're dealing with your children, sometimes you may not be that angry about something, but you may have to show them a little bit of firmness and anger. While dealing with a subordinate, you may not be that angry, but you may have to show a little bit of firmness when you're speaking to them, right? You may not have lost your cool, but showing that, you know, that firmness is very, very important in that situation for them to take that message seriously. And you should do that from time to time. But actually losing your cool where you feel that you're in an uncontrolled state, that is not recommended to you. And often the reason why that happens is we think the other person or the environment is at fault, and we are not at fault, right? Now, it's very important for us to realize that all of us, more often than not, can control our temper, control our emotion, control our states of mind way more than we think we can. Okay, and I'll give you a very simple example of this particular thing. Let's assume that you are in a very heated discussion with somebody at home, right? A very, very heated discussion, and say both of y'all are losing your cool. And all of a sudden, say your super boss, right, calls you, gives you a call, and now you have to go and pick that particular call, right, that your super boss has made. Now, all of a sudden, you know, you have to pick it. You can't miss that call. But all of a sudden, when you now pick the call, you're not going to be speaking to him with that temper. All of a sudden, your mood will change, even if you're just acting, right? Where you'll be like, "Huh, sir, hello, how are you? Long time, kya hua? Kyu call kiya?" So, like 2 seconds back, you were furious about something, right, and really shouting. And the minute your boss calls, as a human being, you're completely capable of changing your state and getting into another state and taking that call and sounding really polite, right? So all of us can change the way we feel in a lot of cases almost immediately if we have the right frame of mind, right? If we understand this issue very well. And that's what I would recommend to you. Okay. So Jaya Chandran, what is a good start from you? From today onwards, take this as a project in your life, that irrespective of what happens, irrespective of what stupid query comes in from today, you are not going to lose your cool. This is your self-development project for you to get better at something, because the problem is not other people. The problem is you losing your cool, which you need to get better at. And as a matter of fact, from today onwards, let's gamify this a little, right? Let's gamify this a little. And what I mean by gamify it, you literally need to set a challenge to yourself that तुम और stupid चीजें पूछो चाहिए तो, right? तुम और time stupid चीजें पूछो, irrespective of what kind of stupid stuff you're going to ask. I am not going to lose my cool, because I am on my own project of self development, and I am using all of you to improve this one part of my life, right? I am using all of you to get better at controlling my temper. So please go about asking more stupid stuff, and I will still deal with it in a very cool, calm, and collected way. That's what I'm going to do. And try doing this for a month, right? And you will see that before you know it, you have improved yourself so much, and you will thank each one of these people for asking you more nonsense queries. You'll say, "Ab aur pucho, mera project hai, mere ko practice ho rahi hai aur," right? By doing this particular thing. So Jaya Chandran, thank you very much for that excellent question of yours. A very practical, a very, very real question. Okay. And I hope you, from today onwards, for the next 1 month, set yourself on the journey of self-improvement, where the more nonsensical queries come, the more politely and cool-handedly you deal with each one of those queries. Okay. If you have a follow-up question, you can ask it and I will try to answer it later. Okay. Now, what is the meaning of corporate dressing? Mangesh, very difficult to answer this entire question in a coaching call. And we have specific sessions in the Work Better Club for corporate dressing for men. There is one session specifically on that, which is called corporate grooming. Am I right? It's corporate grooming. Yeah. Right. So we have a session specifically for men, and we have another session specifically for women, right? So this is 1.5 hours each for men and women. So I can't really give an answer within 5 minutes here. However, let me share a couple of things that you can do. Okay. Now, when if you have to dress well, okay, dressing well is never about having more money. Dressing well is always about taste, right? And how do you develop taste? Largely due to with observation of what people do, right? So if you find somebody that dresses very well, and especially as a man, it's much more easier for you to do it, because women, it's a lot more complicated to dress well than it is for men. But if you observe people that really dress well, there's a lot of different things from there that you can actually pick up and implement yourself. Not that each and everything that you pick up will suit your style, will suit your sensibility, and will suit your the way you look, right? That's not the case. But the biggest way to improve your taste is through observation, okay, of doing that. Okay. Now, if I have to give you one tip on the subject of how to do corporate dressing well, ensure that you wear clothes that fit properly. Okay, because fits are very, very important, and wear clothes that fit properly. A lot of people still buy clothes like they buy clothes for children, right? Saying 2-3 size bade lete hain kyunki bad gaya to right? So they don't really buy well fitted clothes. They're always buying clothes that are much bigger or too tight. One of the two things is what they're doing, and that makes them look kind of odd and not good in a way, right? So this is a very long topic. I can't give you an answer here, but I would recommend that you attend the classes that are there specifically on this thing. We're going to get India's experts to kind of teach you on simple things that you can do to start dressing sharply, right? But since you asked the question, my one tip to you is observe the way other people do it and see what works for you. And number two thing that you need to focus on fits, right? So if your shoulder, for example, ye yahan pe nahi pahunchna chahiye, right? This needs to be here, and if it reaches here, again, you're not going to kind of look too good. And again, Mangesh, the other thing that I think I want everybody on this particular panel to remember, in today's times, dressing well is not about having more money. You just need to know how to dress well. You just need to have taste, because the amount of sales that are happening all the time, buying clothes has become much more cheaper than it was even 5 or 10 years back, right? With all these websites coming in, with all these sales coming in, it's a lot more cheaper to dress well. A lot of things have become expensive over the years, but the one thing that has become cheaper is clothes and apparel, right, over the years. So you can definitely, if you take the effort, you can definitely dress well. And the last point that I'd like to make here is understand the importance of dressing well. Okay, understand that particular importance. And the importance is, if you dress sharply in a corporate setting, when you enter a room, you have the advantage. Okay, so if you dress sharply and you enter a room, for the first 5 minutes, because of the first impression that you said, you will have a slightly more upper hand in that particular discussion. Now, after the first 5 minutes, if you speak nonsense and if you don't make sense to the other person, that advantage is lost, because just by dressing well, you're not going to be able to succeed in your career, right? But that's one of the things that is important, because dressing well really gives you that upper hand, really gives you that first good impression. People take you a lot more seriously when you're doing it, right? So that would be my suggestion to you. And I'd like to end with one kind of research on the importance of dressing well and dressing sharply, right? So there is this very famous book which is called The Six Principles of Influence. We're also, by the way, doing a very nice session, guys, on how to influence, how to persuade, and how to convince people. I'm going to be conducting that session myself. It's part of the Work Better Club. I think it's coming next month. I'm not sure, right? But look at the calendar, go on the Work Better Club website and look at our calendar, and you will find when that session is going to be done. But one of the points in that, the six principles of influence, is a principle called the principle of authority. And as a part of that particular principle of authority, there is the importance of dressing. And in this particular, this author gives this example of, gives this experiment that they ran. If I'm not mistaken, they ran it in New York City, but the research would cut across all cities. They did an experiment where they asked actors to wear very shabby clothes, and in go and ask 100 people, or I don't know, 150 people in a certain area, go and ask them for money and use some excuse, just one excuse, and go ask people for money, right? And see how much money was collected. A week after that, those same actors, 1 week back, the first time that they asked the question, they were dressed very shabbily, not dressed that sharply. They were going out asking these particular questions, asking for money, and they see how much they collected. In the second week, what they do is they got each one of these actors to dress very sharply, right? So they were wearing suits, they looked very good, uh, very sharp formal clothes that they were wearing, and they asked them to go in that same area and ask 150 people and use the same excuse, okay, and ask in the same way those 150 people for money while using the same excuse. The research showed that in the second week they collected almost double the amount that they collected in the first week, right? And nothing else changed. It was almost the same set of people in the same area. The only major change that was there was in the way they dressed, and they collected close to double the money there, right? So that, Mangesh, although we can't get into the details of corporate dressing, those are a few things for you to at least know the importance of it, and know a couple of things that we can do to improve our corporate dressing. Okay, Mangesh, I hope that helps in some way. And I hope you start your journey of improving on this thing starting today, now that you know the importance of it. Okay. Now, yes. Arunima Kamat, I'm going to take your questions in a bit. Ray Kumar, I read your question. I'm not absolutely clear on what you're asking. So if you could ask that question again, I need some clarity on what that question is. Okay. Madhusudan, I'm going to come back to your question. I'm trying to how to lead the team effectively and motivated. Okay, Bhopal Reddy, I hope you are here still. Okay, now long answer to this particular thing. Yes. Okay, Madhusudan is here. Long answer, Bhopal Reddy, to your question of how to lead a team effectively and in motivating them. So I'm just going to take one aspect of motivation and share those things to you. Again, I'm sharing all these things so that you'll know the classes that are coming up. We have 8 classes in our leadership series, right? Where we take different aspects of how do you go about leading people effectively, leading your team members effectively. So for those of you all who are in team leader roles, ensure that through the next 1 year you attend each one of the classes. If you don't get to attend the live classes, you can do it in a self-paced format, but ensure that you attend these classes, because your ability to lead a team is something which is extremely important, right? For your own professional success, because beyond the point of you can't lead a team, you are not going to professionally succeed, right? It's that simple. So it's important for your team members, it's important for your company, but it's also important for you. The minute you become a team member, the results of your people are your results, right? So they have a direct impact on your productivity. So you have to learn how to lead them effectively. You have to learn how to get them motivated, right? Now, leading a team effectively has a lot of different things that a leader needs to do. A leader needs to know how to delegate to his people. A leader needs to know how to give feedback to his people. The leader needs to know how to do the right kind of goal setting with his particular people. The leader needs to know how to conduct himself on a day-to-day basis. The leader needs to know how to review his people. The leader needs to know how to motivate specifically his people, right? So there's a whole gamut of stuff that leaders need to do in order to lead their teams effectively and motivated. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take one part of your question of how do you motivate people, okay? And I'm going to share 2 or 3 points on that. Now, across the world, the biggest motivator of people, it's across the world, across all levels, is appreciation, right? So that is something which is seen as the biggest motivator in all people across the world, right? So there's a very nice quote from Mother Teresa where she says, there is more hunger in this world for love and appreciation than there is for bread. Okay, and this comes from a woman that saw the most amount of poverty, right, in possibly the world, because she would work with some of the poorest people on this planet, right? And she said there is more hunger in this planet for love and appreciation than there is for love, right? In that situation, what leaders often don't know how to do is they don't know how to appreciate their team members, and in turn their team members motivation tends to suffer. Okay, now how to appreciate, long topic, but I'm just going to share 2 or 3 points for you to get started on this thing, right? My number one point on how to appreciate people is know that it is the number one motivator of people. Okay, understand that. And if you can't appreciate people, you are taking away the number one motivator of people if you can't appreciate them. And from my history of dealing with people, I have seen that people struggle to say a good word. A good word doesn't come out their mouth very easily. They're very good at criticizing their people. They're very good at criticizing people. They're very good at saying sarcastic stuff to people. They're very good at saying funny stuff to people, but they're not capable of saying a good word to people. Okay, and that is exactly the kind of quality that each one of y'all should build, and y'all should build it both in your personal and your professional life. Okay, so number one thing to know is know that appreciation is the number one motivator of people. Okay, across the world, across all levels, if you're a human being, that happens. There's a very nice quote by a English poet, William James, where he says the deepest human need is the need to be appreciated. Okay, he calls it the deepest human need. Okay, so understand that particular thing. Now, number two thing to remember about appreciation is this, right? Find ways to appreciate people and appreciate them. What we typically tend to do is we find ways to criticize people and criticize them. That's what we tend to do, right? Okay, so find ways to appreciate people and appreciate them. Don't find ways to criticize people and criticize them. Okay, आप अगर ढूंढने जाओगे तो आपको लाख चीजें ऐसी मिलेगी जो आप appreciate कर सकते हो, right? If you actually go to look for it, you're going to find tons of things that you can find in people to appreciate, but very often we don't train our eyes to do it, right? And from today onwards, I want you to look for things that people are doing well and appreciate them for it. Okay, so that's my point number two. Point number three, very important point. This one is an important point. Appreciate people when they do what they are supposed to do, right? Do not wait for them to do something extraordinary for you to appreciate them. Okay, I repeat. Appreciate people when they do what they are supposed to do. Do not wait for them to do something extraordinary for you to appreciate them. Okay, what most leaders do is they look for their team members to do something extraordinary before they appreciate them, without appreciating them for the things that they are supposed to do, right? So do that. Now, why are you supposed to appreciate people when they do what they're supposed to do? Because most of their other team members are not even doing what they're supposed to do. Are you getting my point? Appreciate people for doing what they're supposed to do, because most other people are not even doing what they are supposed to do. So I often give this example, right? We were dealing with some regional managers who had lots of branch managers reporting into them, right? And each and every branch, okay, each and every one of their branch was supposed to open at 9:30 in the morning, right? But there were only 3 people out of 30 that were consistently doing that. 100% of the time they were opening their branch before 9:30, right? Some would make it 9:35, some would make it 9:40, so on and so forth, right? So they are supposed to open their branch at 9:30. They're being paid to open their branch at 9:30, right? But only 3 out of 30 are doing it. So those 3, ensure that you appreciate them, although they're doing what they're supposed to do. Are you getting my point? Yes or no? If you get my point, give a big yes in the chat box if you're clear on what I'm trying to say. Okay. Now, when people do something extraordinary, appreciate them in an extraordinary way, right? For the regular stuff they're doing, appreciate them. But when they do something extraordinary, try to appreciate them in an extraordinary way, right? So what could extraordinary ways be? One of your team members does something really special. You could get a cake to office and have a small team meeting and appreciate them, right? You could probably write a public email to all the important stakeholders appreciating a certain team member, right? You could probably buy him a small gift. You could probably buy him or her a card, so on and so forth, right? It could be an appreciation note that you give them. You could do a host. It could be a small prize that you give them, a gift that you give them. Because when they do something extraordinary, you want to appreciate them in an extraordinary way, right? So that's what you're trying to do, right? So ensure that you do that. Now, the last 2 points around this subject, because most people tend to like this subject a lot. It's a very important subject. I hope I could remind people about this subject day in and day out, right? Because I think it's very, very important that each and every one of us, we keep talking about being more positive without realizing that the 2 main aspects of being really positive in life is being grateful, and an external manifestation of being grateful is appreciating people, right? And if you don't do these 2 things, you cannot really be a positive person. And there's a very nice quote that says, you can't live a positive life with a negative mind, right? You cannot live a positive life with a negative mind, right? So all of us need to build that ability to become positive, and these 2 things are very, very, very important. Now, coming back to the specifics of appreciation, the last couple of points, all appreciation must be genuine. Okay. So ensure that you're not giving anybody fake appreciation, because fake appreciation is called flattery, and flattery in most cases, in 9 out of 10 cases, does not work, right? So ensure that you make all your appreciation genuine. And the last thing, when you appreciate people, when you appreciate people, And then when you give them critical feedback, right? Or then when you give them feedback, which is in a way called negative feedback or critical feedback or constructive feedback, whatever word that you'd like to use, people tend to take that constructive, negative feedback or critical feedback a lot more seriously, right? And there's a research that which is done, which is called the Lasado's ratio, where he says that for every 3 positive strokes that you have with your people, when you give them 1 negative stroke, that negative stroke tends to work a lot better, right? Now, most of us leaders, what do? We don't really appreciate our people at all, and we're just constantly criticizing them. So our people are thinking ये बस इसको कुछ ना कुछ नेगेटिव बोलना ही होता है, इसको कुछ ना कुछ क्रिटिकल बोलना ही होता है हमेशा, right? So that is what they will tend to say to you, that you always say something critical, and they don't take that constructive or critical advice or feedback that seriously. But if you appreciate your people on one side, and then if you give them the negative or critical feedback on the other, that critical feedback is taken a lot more seriously. Okay. So yeah, that is the point connected to appreciation. I could go on with this particular topic, but my suggestion to each one of y'all is start appreciating people a lot more in your personal life and your professional life. Do it in both things. Sometimes what happens is the people that are closest to us, right, like our closest friends, our siblings, our cousins, our spouses, our children, we don't even appreciate them enough, right? And all of us must remember that the deepest human need is the need to be appreciated, right? And then they will take your negative feedback a lot more seriously when you do that. Okay. I hope I have explained this subject right, Bhopal Reddy. I've given you one of many points that you need to lead a team effectively, and I would suggest that you come for the other classes that will really throw light on all those other things and help you become a far better leader. If you become a far better leader, you get better results for your company. If you get better results for your company, you do better for yourself, for them, and your family, right? And that's all that we're looking for in this particular thing. Your success is our mission, right? That's what we keep talking about. Your success is our mission, and that's what we're trying to give you. Okay. Thank you, Bhopal Reddy. I hope that helped. Let's go to the next question. Nitin Sharma, what a good question. What a good question. Okay, Bhopal Reddy, thank you. Thank you that you're going to implement it. I'm very happy that you're going to implement it. Okay. Nitin Sharma, how can we motivate ourselves in our worst phases? Okay. Now, let me, what I'm going to share with you here, since I don't know what your personal situation is, I don't know what any of your personal situations are. So you have to remember that what I'm sharing with you are ideas, okay? And what these ideas are supposed to do is these ideas are supposed to trigger further ideas in your head, which you can then go out and implement. So you need to take the ideas from here. They need to trigger more ideas in your head as to what you can do. And then you need to see, how can I implement these particular ideas to the best of my capability? Right? Try implementing the ideas that we've stated, see whether they work or not. Persist with them for a while. Okay, don't give up on them immediately. If they don't work, stop using them, right? But most of the ideas that we're going to share here comes from years of dealing with people, different kinds of people. It comes from years of researching on these subjects, right? But I can't ensure that they're going to work in your case all the time, right? I can't give you that particular guarantee because I don't know you personally. I don't know what your situation is here. Somebody asked me, Are, my boss is a problem. I'm like, how do I know you're not the problem? Right? Because maybe your boss is right, you're the problem. I don't know that, but I don't know that. So all that I can do is just have a discussion with you to trigger a few ideas in your head, right? And that's what this coaching is. So how can we motivate ourselves in our worst phases? Okay. Now, this is my answer to it. You may or may not like it. The first thing to remember is, irrespective of what your situation is, this too shall pass. Okay, this too shall pass, irrespective of that, what that situation that you're in. If you think being stuck in corona, being stuck at home is a bad thing, this too shall pass. Yeah, it's just a matter of time that this phase also passes. And just let me assure you, when this phase passes now, you will be complaining saying, yaar ab traffic mein fir se baith raha hu, ghar pe hi acha tha family ke sath, right? When you're at home, you'll say, yaar traffic mein kya maza aata hai, right? I want to go to office. Arey office mein kitna maza hai, right? So the grass is always green on the other side for most of us, right? So the first thing is, this too shall pass is something that you should remember. And you should remember that both during good times and bad times. So this is not just for bad time. When you're having the best of time, know that this too shall pass. When you're having a bad time, know this too shall pass. It's just a temporary phase. Okay, that's number one. Number two is that there's a very nice quote that says, all the things that you take for granted is what somebody else is praying for. Okay, all the things that you take for granted is what somebody else is praying for. Okay, so again, I don't know what your situation is, but what I tell most people is that if you have an able body, if you have your 2 legs, 2 hands, have an able body, have an able head, you should be extremely grateful just for that, because there are so many people around this planet that do not have just an able body, an able mind. They can't eat food for 2 times a day, right? They're really dying of hunger. They're dying of very basic diseases that you can cure with a little bit of money. So this is the state of almost 2 billion people on the planet, right? So if you're ably bodied, you can put 2 square meals on your table, you can provide for your basic health care, you are better than most other people on this particular planet. And again, it's very, very important for you to actually know this, right? Because a lot of our problems are connected to not knowing some of these principles of life, right? So the number one thing is, this too shall pass, irrespective of whether it's a good time or a bad time. Number two, being grateful for what you have. There's a very nice quote that says, right, be grateful for all that you have while aspiring for all that you want, right? Be grateful for all that you have and aspire for all that you want. A lot of us are not grateful for what we have to start with because we've taken it for granted, and then we aspire for those things, okay, and then we're unhappy through our reaching those particular goals that we have because we're not grateful for what we have already. So I want each one of y'all to have high goals for yourself. I want each one of y'all to really try to achieve different things for yourself. But first, you need to start by being grateful for what you have. Because if you're not grateful for what you have, when you get to that summit that you are looking for, you still won't be grateful for that, because that particular thing will last very, very temporarily where you're happy with that particular phase, right? So again, that is very, very important for you to do. Okay, now the third thing in terms of keeping yourself motivated in bad phases, okay, is okay, the third thing that you need to do if you want to be motivated in bad phases, for bad times, is ensure that you get very, very good at goal setting, right? Because through your bad phases, you need to have something that you're chasing. You need to have something that is your, what is called a north star for you, right? And a lot of us often are demotivated. A lot of us are demotivated because we don't have good enough goals. We don't have challenging enough goals that we have. So that would be my kind of third suggestion for you to, in a way, keep yourself motivated. Set yourself interesting goals, right? And again, we're going to do an entire session on how to set yourselves goals that can really transform the way you live, right? So we're going to have a specific session on that. But yeah, for now, try to set yourself whatever goal it is, right? And start your work on those particular goals. And the minute you start work on those particular goals, you're going to get so busy doing that there's going to be nothing else. Okay, and I'll share one last point before we go. Okay, there is a huge connect, and this is not research done by me, okay, and you should read up on this further if you want. Of course, I don't know the validity of this research, but I've seen this research across multiple kind of things. There is a huge kind of upward surge in two things, and they happened almost simultaneously. A huge surge in reported cases of depression/suicide, and a huge upsurge of social media on the same side, right? So there's a huge upsurge on both these things that happened almost simultaneously when they were going up. And a lot of the times, the reason why we are feeling low is because we are constantly doing two things. We're constantly on social media, and because we're on, I have nothing against social media, I'm using it all the time. So let me tell you one thing, but you need to know how to use a lot of these tools, right? It's just like any other tool. So but when they're on social media, what tends to happen is they are always looking at the highlight reels of somebody else's life. Okay, they're looking at the highlight reels of somebody else's life, and what everybody is putting up there on Facebook or Instagram is, oh, what great things are happening in my life, what great food I'm eating, what great holidays I'm going for, what great things are happening. And if you have 450 or 500 friends, each one of them is putting up something or the other. And of course their lives are not glamorous on a day-to-day basis, but they're picking out the best things from their day-to-day and they're putting it up on social media. And you on the other side are looking at it and feeling, "Arey yaar, what the hell? My life is so boring. Look at their life, how interesting it is." Okay. Say the same thing on LinkedIn, right? So if you have, say, a 500 or 1,000 connects, somebody or the other is going to do something well or get promoted, right? So all that you're seeing on LinkedIn is people getting promoted, and you feel, "Yaar, mere life mein kya ho raha hai? Mere life mein kuch nahi ho raha hai. My life is not as happening as they're both on the personal and professional sides," right? If they're taking pictures of their kids, they're taking pictures of their kids in the best clothes of their kids, right? That's what they're doing. They're not putting them in their worst clothes. So at all points of time, if you're on social media a lot, you're looking at basically some form of everybody is doing well, everybody is having a great party, everybody's life is great, and my life is boring, right? So that's a feeling that you get all the time if you're hooked onto social media. And that's why there is a simultaneously upsurge of people being on social media a lot and people feeling that their lives are bad, saying that they have depression, so on and so forth, right? So you see this particular upward surge that is happening there. And the other thing that all of us have gotten addicted to in a way is checking news. Okay, because the news apps are right there. When we don't know what to do, we just keep watching some news or the other. We get useless information, really useless information of your apps, of TV, of all these things. And what the news anchors are trying to do, because they want to get TRP, that they're trying to paint the world in a bad way all the time, right? Ye bura chal raha hai, ye bura. And we're constantly being badgered by these two things. What is good that's happening in everybody else's life, and they are the news anchors telling you some rubbish on the other side, right? That's happening. And that again leads to a lot of us not being in the right state of mind, feeling demotivated all the time, right? So be very, very careful of how you use your social media. Know that everybody is showing their best side, their best 2 minutes out of the day, and everybody's life is as interesting or as boring as what your life is, right? So don't let, if you have this maturity of dealing with stuff, then you can use social media as much as you want to. Otherwise you're going to constantly feel like you are down and everybody else is on top, right? Connected to that. Okay. So Nitin Sharma, again, this is a very complex question to answer. Again, I've just tried to throw a few ideas at you in terms of what you need to do. Whatever your phase, know that this too shall pass. Okay. Be very, very aware of it, whether it's good times or bad times. Number two, be extremely grateful for all that you have while aspiring for all that you want, knowing that almost 2 billion people on the planet don't have the basics that I'm sure you have. If you've logged on to this particular call, I'm sure you can put food on your table, right? I'm sure you can sleep in a decent bed. I'm sure you have a shelter that you can use at night, that just so many people around the world don't have, right? So it's very important for us to be extremely grateful for what we have while aspiring for all that we want. It's very important to also have the aspiration to achieve more for yourself, for your family, for your country. It's very important to have that as well. So that's my second point. My third point is, often people are demotivated because they don't have challenging, relevant goals that they set for themselves, because otherwise you get very busy being focused on those particular goals, and that kind of leads to a motivation in itself. And my fourth point is, ensure that you use social media intelligently, wise, and in a mature way. And you kind of limit the consumption of news, right? Just get the bare facts from one particular source that you know. Don't constantly be hooked on to checking what's happening where, because they want you to log on to their app, they want you to watch TV, they want to sensationalize just about everything. And if you're very busy doing that, you're not spending enough time on your own self-development. You're not spending enough time doing the right things, if you ask me. Right? So that's just a summary of my answer. Nitin Sharma, what an excellent question you have asked. Thank you very much. I hope some of the ideas really help you. Okay. Now, Amulya Patil, Pati, sorry, what are the critical parameters we need to keep in mind regarding being a good listener? Okay. Excellent question. Okay. Besides what I shared, let me share a few other things of how to listen well. Very often, I don't think I do this bit very well myself, right? And I don't think I do it very well when it comes to my spouse. I think I do it worse when it comes to my spouse. I think all of us listen badly to our spouses, but I, for one, am need to improve myself in that area quite a bit. I need to be more patient there. Okay. However, what are the few things that we can do? Okay. Number one, like I mentioned earlier, listen to understand, not to reply. So ensure that you do that. Number two, right? When you're listening to the person, this is just basic hygiene of what you do. Let the other person finish what he's saying before you get started, right? So let the other person finish what the other person is saying before you get started in terms of what you do, for which you need to be extremely patient while you're listening. Okay. Number three, okay, which I shared, the act of listening is as important as actually listening. Okay, I repeat, the act of listening is as important as actually listening, which means that if you are having a conversation with somebody, as far as possible, right, as far as possible, ensure that you're not looking into your screen, either a phone or a laptop, when you're having a conversation with that person. Okay. And a lot of us tend to do that when somebody's talking to us, we're looking into our phones or looking into a laptop, and that's a very disrespectful way for you to be conducting that conversation. So when you're listening to somebody, ensure that you're making eye contact with that person, ensure that you're not looking into your phone or your laptop when you're having that conversation. Very often what people tend to do, because I face this a lot, most of my work I'm always doing from my phone, right? Whether it's emails or anything else. So I'm on my phone and typing on my phone all the time. So somebody starts a conversation with me when I'm on the phone, right? So I'm in the middle of doing and somebody starts a conversation with me. And often I struggle there, but I need to also improve myself there. So even if you're doing that, I think it's very important for you to tell that other person that just you're in the middle, because when a person is on the phone, they don't really know what you are doing. You could be doing some stupid fun thing, or you could also be indulging in some work related thing, right? The other person has got no way of knowing what you're doing on your phone, right? So a good habit to tell that other person, if you're busy doing something important, you just tell that person that just a minute, let me finish what I'm doing. And I'll often finish the message or finish the email or finish whatever else you're checking. Finish that, then keep your phone away, look at the person, and then tell the person, okay, tell me, what were you saying, right? So when you are there, you're fully committed to the process of listening. So the one good term to remember, right? Be 100% committed, right, to the process of listening. Okay. If you're not 100% committed to it, you're not going to be able to do it well, right? So keep your phone aside, look into the other person's eye, and ensure that you're listening to that person, right? That's a very important thing to do. Right now, my fourth point connected to this is, for all work related discussions, in any discussion that you're having, while listening, ensure that you're making notes, right? So if any of y'all are kind of in a business conversation and not making notes, I find that very, very suspicious, right? At Work Better, which is my organization, people are not allowed to get into meetings unless they're carrying their notepads with them, because there's a very nice quote that says the faintest of ink is better than the strongest of memory, right? Our memories are extremely fickle, and so if you don't make a note of something, you are going to forget that very soon, very easily, right? So ensure that while listening, you make very good notes. Also, when you're making notes, what tends to happen is you have all the points in front of you, so you can ask good questions connected to what you just made a note of, because it's all in front of you, right? You don't need to interrupt anybody, because first you can just listen to entirely what they're saying, make all the notes of what the other person is saying, and then one by one, point by point, you can kind of ask them any questions that they have with regards to the notes that you've made, and again make a note of what answers or what input they give you, And for important, slightly longish work discussions, it's very important that you reconfirm your understanding of what you're saying. If you don't listen very well, if you don't ask questions, you can't reconfirm. And unless you reconfirm a discussion, you're not a very good business communicator, right? You have to do that reconfirming. So if you don't make notes, you can't ask good questions. You don't ask good questions, we don't tend to reconfirm our understanding, right? So that's why making notes while listening is a great tip. It's a very, very important. I think it's one of the most important things to do. Okay. Now, the last tip, of course, we can go on and on and on and on. Like I said, that listen with not just your ears, but also your eyes, and ensure that your body language in a way reflects interest in what you're saying, right? So what is body language reflects what you're saying by listening. So if you're in front of a person or even on a video call, ensure that you're leaning ahead into the conversation, right? You're not back, but when somebody's talking to you, you lean your body slightly ahead when you're talking to them. So that shows interest. When you're listening to a person, ensure that you're reflecting the emotion of that other person, right? So if somebody's sharing good news with you while listening, your facial expression needs to reflect good news. If somebody's sharing, if somebody's angry about something, your facial expression needs to show concern towards that particular person, right? So you listen with not just your ears, but also through your eyes. You listen not just with your ears, but also through your face and your body language, right? While doing that. So this is the fifth tip that I can give you on this particular subject. Amulya, the fact that you asked this question in itself shows a lot of maturity that you have. The last point to remember here, 50% of all communication is listening. Okay, 50% of all communication is listening. The other 50% is speaking. Very simple, right? So if you're a good listener, you have more or less sorted 50% of your communication, and then you need to get better on the other 50%. It's exactly like in written communication, 50% of written communication is about writing, the other 50% is about reading well. And all these four parts are very, very important for you to be an effective communicator. So the fact that you asked how to listen well and you possibly get started on the journey is very important. Okay, now I feel like sharing one more point. Should I, Amulya, should I share one more point? Okay, now the thing is that a lot of us feel that speaking is very, very difficult, but listening is as difficult as speaking. But what tends to happen is when a person is a bad speaker, it becomes very obvious to other people. But when a person is a bad listener, it's not as obvious as it is when a person is a good speaker, right? The other thing to remember is listening is very, very, very difficult, right? Because our mind is so fickle, so that unless you really concentrate on what the other person is saying, our mind tends to jump around, right? Our mind is very, very fickle. So you really need to concentrate on the process of listening if you want to become a good listener. And if you're not a good listener, what tends to happen is you tend to either not understand the subject well, or you totally miss out on a point. And in both cases, you end up looking very, very stupid to the stakeholders that you're talking to, right? आपकी समझ में नहीं आ रहा है क्योंकि आप ठीक से सुन नहीं रहे हो, या आपने वो पूरी बात सुनी नहीं है, तो आप स्टूपिड इसलिए लगे रहे, वो आगे वाला आदमी बोलता है कि यार मैंने इसको बात की, उस पे याद में भी नहीं है, और बोल रहा है तूने बताया नहीं मुझे. So you tend to look very, very, very stupid when you don't listen well. Okay, I'm going to stop right here, Amulya, because otherwise I'll spend a whole day on the topic of listening. Okay, thank you very much for this excellent question. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to try to take questions from different people so that we everybody gets a chance in a way. In a specific structure where I need to work with cross-functional teams, how can I improve execution of tasks? Okay, Bishwajit Das, that's again an excellent question. Execution of anything basically means your ability to get things done, which in a way means your ability to get results, which in a way means your ability to take some project from start to finish. Okay, because unless you take something from start to finish, you're never going to get the result that is there, right? In my experience, Bishwajit, of dealing with cross-functional teams, I can tell you that a lot of times your colleagues are not going to be very well planned and very well organized. Okay, because most people unfortunately are not very well planned and very well organized, right? That's just the reality of the situation. And therefore, if you have to work with a lot of cross-functional teams, it will be important for you to not just be well planned and organized for yourself, but also in a way be well planned and organized for those other people, right, that are not. Now, is this fair? No, life is not fair. So this is definitely not fair. In an ideal world, you would want you to be organized and planned. You'd also want them to be organized as planned. In an ideal world, that's what we would want. But I think one of the things to remember is deal with the world not like you would like it, but as the world is, right? And most of us try to deal with the world as we would like it instead of dealing with the world as it is. And as the world is, most people are not well planned, most of them are not well organized. Okay, so you need to do the hard work for being not just well organized for yourself, but also them. Now let me give you an example of this thing. If one of your colleagues has committed to submit a certain project on the 25th of July, okay, very often they're not going to be organized, but if they don't submit that particular thing on the 25th of July, that hampers your ability to submit that project in turn to some other stakeholders. Okay, let's look at it this way. So now what you're going to have to do is politely and tactfully ensure that you keep reminding that other colleague that's supposed to deliver the project on the 25th that he's supposed to deliver the project on the 25th. You'll have to do that very politely, very tactfully, right? Because if you want to do well in your career, a lot of people must want you to do well in your career. So if you keep offending people, it's going to be very difficult for you to do well in your career if you keep offending them, right? So that's why being polite and being tactful becomes very important, right? So for you to get your work done from him, you're going to have to constantly follow up with him, remind him, so that that kind of project comes in the right way to you on the 25th. So you in turn can deliver what you need to the other stakeholders, right? Now that takes a lot of hard work from you. You need to put reminders to remind him. You need to put reminders for yourself to follow up with him, which becomes very tedious for you. But that's just the reality of how you need to deal with stuff, right? So you have to do it. There's no choice around it, right? Now, beyond the point with certain colleagues, when you realize and trust builds, what is trust? Trust is nothing but your trust is a very simple thing, right? Trust means, in the corporate world at least, it means sticking to your word, sticking to your commitments of what you do. And when you consistently stick to your word, you consistently stick to the commitments that you give, people start trusting you for stuff, right? So what you're supposed to do is, when some of your colleagues actually start sticking to their words or start sticking to their commitments, you don't need to constantly remind them then of what is happening, right? You don't need to do that, because then you know that, okay, ye jo banda hai ya ye jo bandi hai, she's going to kind of give me everything on time because she's as well planned and organized as I am. But this other guy that I'm talking about, he is always a mess. So this is some person that I need to plan and I need to be organized for. Again, is this perfect? No. Are we living in a perfect world? No. But if you want to get better at dealing with cross-functional teams and execute better, this would be my number one tip to you. Okay. And it's not a very nice sounding tip, but it is definitely a very effective tip for sure. And if you start doing this, Biswajit, my friend, you will see great results. A lot of reasons why we don't do this is, we लगता है यार वो मेरा काम थोड़ी है उसको रिमाइंड करना, यार उसने करना चाहिए, मैं मानता हूँ उसने करना चाहिए, but that's not the way the world functions, unfortunately. So this is the most honest, practical advice that I can give you. Try doing it, see if it works. I hope it works, my friend, for you, so that you get better at executing and get better at your result. Okay, thank you for asking that question. Yes, thank you. I am glad that you found it valuable. Like I said, it's very difficult for me to know exactly what your situation is, exactly what your case is. My job here is to try to generate ideas, right? That helps all of us kind of do our job slightly better, and then you can implement it in your own fashion, own way, and use what I'm sharing with you is a mix of theory and practical. Then you need to see whether that practically, whether you can put it into action in your particular situation. Okay. Okay, Debraj Bhaumik, if I am sending a mail to my team members and assigning a task, then how do I know whether they've understood my communication properly or not? Debraj, that's an excellent question. I'm sure everybody would kind of really appreciate that question. Now, first of all, Debraj, I would really recommend that you come for our communication classes. Okay. We have realigned our calendar slightly, and now, based on the demand of a lot of our members, we have increased our communication classes. Now, throughout the year, we're going to have 25 communication related classes for you, because like I mentioned at the start, we believe communication is a skill that is agnostic. It applies across all industries, across all levels. All our work happens through communication. So we're going to have 25 odd sessions for you to improve your communication skills through the year. So by next year, you're a totally different person than you are right now. Okay. So I'm glad that you're asking a question here. Now, let me give you a couple of tips that you can do, right? Start, Debraj, by improving your communication, which means that make your communication precise. The word precise means a mix of your communication being very specific and concise. Okay, so make your communication very precise while you send it across to people. Number two, make your communication extremely simple to understand, idiot proof to understand, right? And the way to go about making it simple and idiot proof is, when you finish writing your email, look at each one of the lines, each one of the words, and think, how could this line be misinterpreted or misunderstood by the other person? Okay, you literally need to analyze each and every line and think, how could this line be misunderstood or misinterpreted by the person who's in front of me, right? Now, if you do that particular thing, you will end up making a lot of changes to the email and making a lot more simpler. So you've made it precise, you made it simple on the other side, right? These two blocks are extremely important when you're doing it. Okay, now my third tip to you is, at the end of each and every email, always put this line: please reach out to me by email or phone calls if you need any clarifications on this, or if you've not understood. So the best line, I think, is very simple: please reach out to me in case you need any further clarifications on this particular thing. If somebody reaches out to you, ensure that you appreciate them for reaching out to you. So again, you're setting the right culture of people asking questions and clarifying doubts if they don't understand something, right? When a person calls you for a clarification, don't say, yaar tere ko itna bhi malum nahi hai, ye to simple cheez hai, tu kab se kaam kar raha hai yahan pe. So if that is your response when they actually ask you a question, they're going to not ask you a question the next time, right? That's simple. They are not going to ask you a question the next time. So very, very simply encourage people, right towards the bottom, saying, please seek out any clarification that you need. When a person actually calls you, ensure that you start that discussion with an appreciation of the fact that they've reached out to you for that particular thing. Now, the minute you do that kind of a thing, this kind of way of being specific, being simple, and encouraging people to reach out to you, you will find that your team will do that a lot more. Your communication will be better. Your team will reach out to you a lot more, and that will really help them understand your message, and in turn ensure that the work happens in a more effective, in a more productive way, without wastage of your time, without wastage of their time, right? Now, the last point, if you attend my class on communication, you'll know this, right? Of saying that if you communicate to somebody and they don't understand the message, don't blame them for it. You need to make your communication more simple and more precise, right? A lot of the reason why we are not good at our communication is simple. We are not good at our communication because when another person misunderstands the message, we blame them and we don't blame us. The best communicators can apply across a wide spectrum of people where they understand them very well. And will people understand you perfectly all the time? No. When I'm doing this particular class, will you understand everything that I'm saying? No. But I know that I need to take the effort to help you understand something. If you don't understand something, I can't blame you for it. I need to see how I need to keep improving my communication, right? To put across messages in a more simple way, in a way that each one of you all understand it, right? मैं अगर यहाँ पे बड़े-बड़े शब्द use करूँगा, if I use a lot of jargon, if I use a lot of abbreviation, you guys are not going to understand stuff. I'm trying to keep the language simple, therefore, right? For you to do it. So ensure that you're taking that doing that. Debraj, what an excellent question you asked. I'm so happy with the first coaching call of the Work Better Club. You'll have asked some very insightful questions. Okay. Thank you, Debraj. Okay. I think we have time for a few more questions. Shibu Ponan. Okay. So Shibu, I'll read out the question first. Okay. Yes, Debraj, thank you very much. I'm glad that you found this useful. So Shibu Ponan asked the question saying, one client of mine in the current situation wants to reduce the input cost. Hence, even after explaining all parameters technically and commercially, he keeps writing and calling and escalating. This goes to such an extent that you tend to lose your patience. How do you control yourself in such a situation? Okay. Yeah, I'll tell you what the situation is right now, right? I think if we come to terms with the reality of the situation, I think we will tend to deal with the situation in a much better way. The situation as of today is that most businesses, not just in India, but across the world, most businesses are struggling right now. What is happening right now is literally a once in 100 years event, right? It is a event that the world is not seen at least in 100 years. And I don't remember a time ever that where the world entirely is suffered so much with these lockdowns and with all these things that are happening, right? So you must understand that the time that we're in is unprecedented. The time that we're in is very unique. The time that we're in is a 1 in 100 years time. Naturally, because of that, all of us know that the economy is suffering, and naturally, because of that, each and every company is out of business or has reduced business, so on and so forth, right? So therefore, I think what each and every company is trying to do, and in turn, people in that company are trying to do, is they are trying to reduce whatever cost that they can more from the point of view of surviving this period, so that even if they're not suffering right now, the future is so uncertain that they're trying to save up as much cash as possible for them to survive this particular period. So this particular person, whoever it is probably as desperate as millions of other people on this planet are. His company probably is in a very tricky situation, and his bosses and his superiors are putting immense pressure on this particular person to get the costs of whatever the costs are down for them to survive in a way. Okay. I think the only way to deal with this particular situation at this point of time is being patient, being understanding, being empathetic. I know it's tough, right? Because even you're in the same spot as they are, right? So I'm not saying that this is easy at all. It is tough for you. It is also tough for them. But the only way for us to kind of get out of this situation is showing a deep understanding for what is happening around the world, knowing that this is an unprecedented event, knowing that each and every person and business is doing whatever they can to survive this period and get through period, and in turn they're making demands that are often unreasonable demands of other people, right? Difficult demands of other people, demands that can lead to people actually losing their cool. There's no doubt about that. But I think that after getting an understanding of the situation, please try to deal with these stakeholders in a very patient way. Okay, because if you don't deal with these clients in a patient way right now, whatever little business that you're getting from these particular clients also could go, which could put you and your company in an even deeper soup than it is right now. If there are certain costs that they're asking for which is not possible for you, because a lot of them will ask for stuff which is just not possible for you to give, be very polite, be very patient, and say no. You don't need to lose your cool. You can be very polite, you can be very patient, and not lose your cool. So we're going to do a very interesting session on the subject of how to say no to people. And one of the things that we teach there, which is what we call the polite wall, right? That's what we call. The other word for it also given is a broken record or polite wall. And what we meant, I came up with this term based on, I'm a big cricket fan, so I came up with this term based on one of my favorite cricketers, Rahul Dravid. So Rahul Dravid, what he would tend to do is, he would tend to, when he had to stay on the wicket, especially in Test cricket, he would defend the ball in a way very politely, right? So you could throw all kinds of balls at him, right? You could throw any kind of ball at him and he would just politely defend that particular ball, because he knew he had to stick it out, right? He had to be there throughout the day and play. So he wouldn't try to play well like Sehwag, where he would try to hit wild shots and possibly get out. He would just politely, you could throw any ball at him and he would just politely defend it. And he would just, because he'd be very patient, you have a very good temperament, right? So what you need to do is exactly like that, very patiently keep defending those particular queries without losing your cool. And in a while, the person on the other side also will understand that there's really nothing that you can do about it, because वो भी try मार रहा है, वो भी सोच रहा है, देखता है कुछ हो गया, cost कम तो हो गया, try मार के देखते हैं, पर आप बिना बात के, बिना मतलब के इरिटेट हो रहे हो, तो आप भी उसको, मतलब वो भी ट्राई कर रहा है, आप भी उसको पेशेंटली डिफेंड करते रहो. अब ये मुझे बोलना बहुत आसान है, मैं जानता हूँ, ये बोलना बहुत आसान है, करना बहुत डिफिकल्ट है, बट लाइफ की हर चीज वैसे है, लाइफ की हर चीज बोलने में आसान होती है, करने में बहुत डिफिकल्ट होती है, right? But politely defend it. Now let me tell you one of the techniques. Say if you're on a phone call with that particular person and he says to you saying, but no, I really want this, you can say, I'm really sorry, I've told you that this is the reason why I can't do it. Say, no, I really want. You say, yes sir, I totally understand that even you all are in trouble right now. I totally understand that even you have a lot of pressure on you to reduce costs. I totally understand, but there's nothing I can do. He says, no. You say, yes sir, I understand that you're in a lot of trouble, right? And even your situation is like that, I totally, but there is nothing I can do. So after 3 or 4 times, he says something like this and you politely keep defending him by saying the same thing, उसको भी पता चली जाएगा कि आप कुछ नहीं कर सकते. फिर वो मेल भेजता है तो आप उसको politely respond करो कि सर नहीं होगा कुछ भी, right? And that is the best that you can do in that situation. Even if you cannot reduce the costs, ensure that you do not lose the customer, right? Because corona will go after whatever period of time, but you will still have to deal with those same set of customers, right? So even if you cannot reduce the cost, do not try to lose a customer for life. That is my only suggestion to you, right? Because customers are the people that put the bread on our table in the end, right? If you have no customers, there is no business, right? And these are tough times, so acknowledge those tough times and deal with them accordingly. Okay, Shibu, what an excellent question. What a practical question. What a valuable question. I'm sure a lot of people have benefited from the discussion that we've had. So thank you very much. Difficult advice to implement, easy for me to give it, but that's how life is, unfortunately. Okay. Thank you, Madhusudan. Okay, so Nandini has a question. Let me Shivu, thank you. It's very, very nice of you to share those kind words. Okay, now I have time. We are done with time actually. 10 o'clock to 11:30 was supposed to be the session. What excellent questions. I've really enjoyed myself on this Sunday morning dealing with all of you all. So I'm going to try to pick the 1 or 2 last questions and we're going to unfortunately end the day with that. And then I will hopefully see you next week. We have some amazing sessions planned. Arunima, what sessions do we have planned next week? Oh, we have, by the way, next week, before I get to the last 2 questions, next week, the sessions are on work from home, a practical guide, right? A lot of us are struggling to work from home. With a lot of us, our domestic help is not coming home. We have so many people who are all stuck at home. Our kids are at home. It's such a nightmare to work from home. We're going to put some kind of a practical guide for you to how to work from home better. Okay, because God knows how long we're going to have to work from home. Okay, and the second subject, which is next Sunday, is time management, which I'm going to be doing myself. I'm going to be talking and discussing some of my favorite subjects, literally life-changing session next week on how to manage your time effectively, right? It doesn't matter who you are. You could be a student, you could be a professional of 30 years of experience or 5 years of experience. It doesn't matter. What we're going to discuss next week on time management could literally be life-changing for you, because it had that kind of a life-changing impact on me when I learned these things from somebody else, right? So I want the same thing to happen to you. So I hope, I really hope that you log on to the session next week. Okay, so let me try to answer a couple of more questions that could apply to everyone. Okay. Okay. Very good. Rajesh, let me answer this one question quickly. Okay. The good Rajesh Gosalkar asked the question. Many times the communication went very descriptive from my side. How to restrict the same communication? Okay. So that's broadly what he's asking. Now, listen carefully. There are two aspects, right? If a person needs to be a good communicator, when the right word is for you to be a good communicator, you need to communicate in a precise way. And what precise means is you need to be specific on one side. And the minute you're more specific, you're automatically giving more details, because that's what being specific means. You get into the details of stuff. But on the other side, you need to be concise. And what concise essentially means is you need to be to the point as well, or a simpler word. It's not the most accurate word, short, right? So you need to be specific on one side, which involves giving details, and you need to be concise on the other, which means to the point. So that's what you need to do. So what's a good suggestion for you to how to become precise, which is a marriage of these two words? When you're first writing your email, try to be as specific as possible. So give whatever details that you need to give. And then after you've done that whole email, look at your email and think now, okay, I've given all the details. Now, what are the details here that are not really relevant to this situation that I can actually cut out? So then your job after making your email specific is to play the role of an editor in some way, where you cut out each and every word, you cut out each and everything that is not required. So very good way after making your email specific to concise is cut out each and every word that is extra, cut out each and every line that is extra. And literally, I mean each and every word, right? If there is, if you can put across a thought in 5 words, do not use 10 words to put that thought across. So think, how can I use 5 words instead of 10 words to put this particular thought across, right? And after, you need to play that role of an editor, of really then making it to the point and more concise. So that will then make you a good communicator, where you will be a precise communicator. And that's what we need to aim for in business communication. Remember, it's not about making your mails long or short. It's about making them precise. Because if in the whole need of trying to make it short, if you don't give the details that are required, they'll keep being back and forth, right, in emails. And that's not good communication, when you need to keep going back and forth. So specific on one side, concise on the other, precise is what you need. Okay. So Rajesh, I hope that answered your question. Attend all our communication skills classes. We have 2 classes on just written communication that will help you, but you also need to attend a lot of the other classes for you to get an in-depth understanding of the subject of communication. Okay. Now, so Weber asks a question, sir, a little aggressive communication is better or not? Okay, so let's remove the word aggressive to start with. Okay, I wouldn't recommend that you get aggressive at any point of time in your business communication, because being aggressive or being angry or being rude in 9.5 out of 10 cases does not work, right? There could be a rare case where you need to be aggressive, but in 9.5 out of 10 cases, it does not work, right? And I don't even want to get into that rare case where it could be required, right? But in most cases, it does not work. What you need to be, like we discussed, is you need to be firm yet polite, which is called being assertive in your communication. That is what you need to get to. And that is very important, whether you're dealing with your children, whether you're dealing with your team members, whether you're dealing with any stakeholder. But in business, it's extremely important to retain the politeness when you're speaking to people, because you don't have anything for or against people. If you tend to get aggressive, if you tend to lose your cool, if you tend to lose your temperament, like I've discussed during this call, do not blame other people for it. Do not blame the situation for it. Some people get angry for anything. It doesn't matter what it is, right? They just keep getting angry. The problem is not the world. The problem is you, if you keep losing your cool, right? So bring the focus back on really thinking, why do I keep losing my cool for each and everything? And let me just give you one last example in terms of aggressive or not, right? Now, let's ensure you have a team, right? And in front of that particular team, you're being a hero, you're being extremely aggressive, you're sometimes being rude, right? And then you probably tell your colleague, yaar mujhe na inse baat karne control hi nahi hota, mera aise gussa aata hai, right? this is all rubbish, right? That you can't control yourself. Because if I put you in front of your CEO and if you have to talk to him, automatically you know how to be polite in front of him, right? Because you know that your self-interest as it is at heart. If you're rude and aggressive in front of that CEO of yours, you'd possibly end up losing your job. So automatically you know how to control your temper. Automatically you know how to control yourself. You have all the answers. But when you're in front, you're at home, when you're in front of your juniors or some colleagues that you're comfortable with, we take the liberty of losing our cool. We take the liberty of behaving badly, right? And know that it is absolutely all under our control, right? We just have told ourselves the wrong story around this thing. Sometimes we've grown up with the wrong story, right? Just, for example, a lot of people have seen some of their parents being angry all the time and they think, नहीं मुझे ना genetic problem है. कोई genetic problem नहीं है भाई. तूने वैसे देखा है तो तुझे अब लगता है कि वही तरीका है बात करने का, वही you think you're born with that particular problem, and you're rarely born with any one of those problems, right? These are something that has happened due to nurture. And each one of us, when it comes to a situation, we know how to control our temper, we know how to control ourselves. The problem is that we don't take enough effort because we've given ourselves the liberty to behave badly in certain situations, which we need to stop doing from right now. And not for anybody else, you need to stop doing it for yourself, right? Because a person that's angry all the time, nobody takes that person seriously, right? My mother used to be angry with me all the time for everything. She often still is, but she'd be angry with me for everything. So then I stopped taking her anger seriously, because the smallest of things she used to get angry. My father used to get angry with me once in a while. So I took his anger very, very seriously. Okay. So think for yourself. Are you getting upset, angry all the time? Nobody is going to take you seriously then. Okay. If you're upset, angry, agree once in a while, okay, people, then it's probably for the right measure that is there. Okay. Now, absolutely right question. Last question, guys. Absolutely last question. Although I love dealing with your questions, and we have these coaching sessions every month. So any question that is missed now, I will try to take it up at the next time. Okay. Now, last question. Anil Kovuri asks a very honest question. Okay. How to handle the situation like feeling great fear during the team meetings, whenever boss colleagues ask a question or seeking a response from my side. Anil, what a beautiful, very honest question that you asked. I really appreciate your question, right? It comes from you're asking the right questions. Okay. If you feel scared while answering a question, nobody feels scared just for the sake of feeling scared. Often there are some deep rooted reasons why you are feeling scared to respond, right? And you think this is some behavioral disorder that you have, that I feel scared all the time. No. There is some deep rooted reason why you're feeling scared, and you probably already know those answers in terms of what those deep rooted kind of reasons are that you're feeling scared. Okay. Now, given my experience of dealing with literally lakhs of professionals over the last 10 to 12 years, very often when people feel scared to put their thought across in front of their bosses or colleagues, number one reason is they often know that their communication skills are not good enough. Okay, so they are aware from the inside that their communication skills are not good enough, and therefore they're very scared of putting their thoughts across. So now, if that is the case with you, if you know your communication skills is a big area of improvement, stop being scared and start working on improving your communication skills. Because if you don't actually put in the effort of improving your communication skills, even if I come on this call after 10 years, you will still be scared, because nothing would have changed. You will still know from within that your communication skills are not good enough, right? And that is the real reason why you could be feeling scared. Now, although communication and speaking English is not the same thing, it's connected, but it's not the same thing. When you come for the communication skills class, you will know that it's not the same thing. However, if yours is an office space where everybody communicates in English during meetings, and again, you feel that you don't have a good enough command over the English language, that is again the second reason why people often feel scared, right? And they know this from the inside, but they often don't want to admit it to themselves, right? Now, the third reason why you are scared during those particular meetings is probably that you're not as well prepared as you need to be
You're not as much of a subject matter expert on that particular topic that you need to be, because again, you haven't taken the effort to understand those subjects in and out, right? Like you which is probably expected of you. And therefore, if there is a meeting, when you're answering those questions, you're very scared again, right? The fourth reason could be a lot of things to do with the past that have happened, right? And again, they've happened because of certain things that you have not done well. For example, there could be a lot of instances in the past where you've tried to reply and you've been cut off by people. There have been lots of instances where you gave your opinion, but somebody kind of possibly insulted you, and you got insulted very easily, because you know from the inside that you need to develop these things, right? People that take offense very easily to stuff often take offense very easily to stuff because they haven't developed themselves in areas that they need to. So they're now very, very sensitive around each and everything, and they feel bad about everything, right? So that could be the other thing that has happened in the past. Now, the only way to get out of this thing, if you ask me, Anil, my friend, is to really identify what are the reasons that you're making it scared. My experience tells me that it would be one of these three or four things, right, that have happened. You need to improve your communication skills. If people typically speak in English, you need to improve your ability to speak that particular language so that you're dealing with it well. Number three, you need to get a better hold on the subject matter on the subject matter that is being discussed there. Prepare better for it. And number four, you could have had a lot of experiences in the past, fortunately or unfortunately for you, where you've been cut off, where you've been insulted on sharing it. Know that that is the past, right? Know that you do not need to treat your past not like a burden, but like a school, right? So try to really analyze, why were you cut off, why were you insulted there, and try to improve upon those areas so that you can see a better outcome the next time for yourself, right? So that would be my kind of suggestion to you in terms of analyzing your fears and going ahead. Again, my suggestion to you is, do not blame the outside world for anything. Look at the things that you need to do better in yourself. Because if we spend our time blaming the world outside, we're not focusing enough on our own areas of development, right? And the more we focus on our own areas of development, that is our best bet to make progress in our professional lives and to live a more peaceful personal life, right? Because even on your personal life, there are a lot of areas where we need to develop ourselves, and often we don't even ask those questions of where we need to develop ourselves in those areas. And my wish for each one of y'all is that each one of y'all gets so busy developing yourself and bettering yourself that you don't have time for anything else. You don't have time for any other nonsense that is there, right? कितनी बार करो ना कि वही न्यूज पढ़ोगे, क्या फायदा होता है पढ़ के? कोई फायदा नहीं है। अगर वही टाइम आपने किसी प्रोडक्टिव चीज में अपने खुद को डेवलप, खुद को इम्प्रूव करने में बिताई, तो उसका आपको कुछ तो फायदा होगा ना। कोरोना का पढ़ पढ़ के कोई फायदा नहीं होने वाला। सोशल मीडिया पे जा जाके किसी का फायदा नहीं होने वाला, ठीक है? बट देयर आर सो मेनी एरियाज वेयर यू नीड टू इम्प्रूव. जस्ट फोकस on those areas, right? So just the beauty of life, just to end this particular session, guys, I think the beauty of life is not try to copy other people. The beauty of life is not try to compete with other people. I think the beauty of life in a way is to keep trying to become a better version of ourselves in every area of our life, right? So try to become a better communicator, try to learn how to dress better, try to learn how to be more patient, try to learn how to. So each and every one of these things takes a lot of work to really work and develop yourself on the personal side, right? Try to really think, how can I become a better spouse? How can I become a better parent? How can I become a better son or daughter? How can I become a better friend? How can I become a better member of society? So constantly look at all these big important questions of life and think, what do I need to do better on each and every one of those areas? And the more we do that, the better chance we have of doing well. And you won't have time for any other nonsense that is there on in and around you, right? If you constant time ही नहीं मिलेगा आपको, अगर आप खुद पे फोकस करते हो, आप अपनी लाइफ इंप्रूवमेंट में फोकस करते हो, टाइम ही नहीं होगा और कुछ करने के लिए. एंड दैट इज अ गुड साइन. व्हेन यू डोंट हैव टाइम फॉर नॉनसेंस, व्हेन यू आर सो concerned of just becoming a better version of yourself without competing with anybody else. आप वही करोगे ना, आप वैसे भी आगे जाने वाले हो, ठीक है? So on that note, all my friends, for those questions that have remained unanswered, I am extremely sorry. We're already started at 10 o'clock. We're already at 11:45. I am so sorry if your questions haven't been answered. Therefore, this is a club which is a club where you keep coming back every month for these sessions, because एक ऐसे dose मिलने से कुछ नहीं होता, ये dose चाहिए every weekend, right? Just like we ask our children to study all the time, even we need to study all the time, right? बहुत बार क्या होता है, हम बच्चों को बोलते हैं आप स्टडी करो, हमने स्टडी करना बहुत टाइम पहले छोड़ दिया है, ठीक है? And in the knowledge economy, if we're not constantly improving, if we're not constantly learning, if we're not constantly studying these important things, we will have the same fate as our children that don't study for an exam, right? So we don't want that, right? So that's why this club is designed, where you get input every weekend. If you miss any of the input, you get the self-paced version of it that comes to your box. For whatever reason it doesn't come to your box, please check your promotion, please check your spam. If it still doesn't come to you, please write to us and we will send it across to you. We want to ensure that each one of our members is delighted while dealing with us, and we're serving them in the best way possible. Okay, attend next week's classes, guys. They're very good classes on how to work from home, and it's a very, very good class, a life-changing class on time management. I can assure you of that particular thing. Okay, now I'm going to I'm launching your feedback poll for your feedback. Please give your feedback on this Sunday morning, now coming close to afternoon, on this coaching call. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for your kind words. I really appreciate your kind words, and I hope to answer a lot of your other questions in the next coaching call that you get, or during some specific questions that you have. We designed a whole after class for you after each and every session, if just to answer your questions. So we do the session for 90 minutes. And then after each and every session, we have a close to 45 minutes after class just to answer your questions. Okay. Thank you very much. Everybody, please ensure that you all give the feedback on this particular thing so that we know. Thank you, my friends. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Where's Vehan? Get it. He's in the bathroom. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much. Yes, we are done, guys. This is an entire class on questions, so we don't have an after class after this thing, right? Unlike all the other sessions where we have an after class, we are done. There is no test for this thing. There is no nothing. This is just for you to attend, ask your questions, get clarity, have an interaction with the other club members. Like as in you all are not interacting with each other, but we're just sitting and doing a Q&A, right? Yes, thank you. God bless you. Thank you as well. So that's what we're doing. 100, I think close to 100% of people have voted. Okay, yeah, okay. End polling. Okay, share results. Let's share the results. Okay, I think some great feedback for this particular session. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. See you. Thank you.